Welcome to the Nick, Dick, and Paul Show. I am one of your hosts, Nick Bilton. I write stuff for a living and somehow ended up in this podcast. My other host is...
Hi, I'm Dick Costolo, former CEO of Twitter and the first user of Facebook.
Were you really?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was willing to go with that. I actually thought that was probably true. Paul Kedrosky, venture investor, Wall Street guy way back. Talk too much.
Definitely does talk too much. All right, we have a very, very special guest today. His name is Allan Loeb. I've known Allan for about 15 years. He is an incredible screenwriter. He is also a former Wall Street or Chicago. Which one was it?
Chicago.
And he's a gambling addict. So
compulsive gambler.
Compulsive gambler. Sorry, did I say it wrong?
That's the proper way to say gambling.
Okay, got it. So, as a compulsive gambling addict, we're going to talk today about poly markets, about the betting culture that we're in today, and we're going to hear some really, really fun stories from Allan, which I can't wait to jump into. So, Allan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to see you guys.
So we wanted to talk about poly markets and stuff, but can you set the
Prediction
stage?
Markets
Prediction
in
markets
general.
in general.
And poly markets, et cetera.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your history of gambling and how
it became compulsive?
Yeah. Well, I think it becomes compulsive the second you're born. I do believe it's a genetic disposition with compulsive gambling, and probably alcoholism would be my guess, and other addictions. But for me, for men, it happens very, very young. It's interesting. For women, it happens empty nesters. That's when they end up, when the kids leave the house, they go to the local casino, play the video poker games, and then they lose everything. For men, it's when you're 12, 14. For me, it was about 12 years old.
What was the first thing you bet on at 12?
I used to play poker in the hallways of my middle school with I grew up in the North Shore of Chicago, so in a suburb, and with the some other students. I can name them all now. I mean, it would be a who's who in Jewish names. Yeah. Neil Goldman, Andrew Bergman, and we would play in the hallways, really rough. I don't even know. It wasn't the kind of poker there is now, like Texas Hold'em. It was some sort of bastardized, easier, simple version, and we'd all owe each other money that we didn't really have. And then things went crazy. Even in those days, with getting the money.
So, how did it make you feel when you won versus when you lost?
That was what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I remember my whole life, it's a dopamine addiction.
But it's obviously asymmetric, though. I mean, the old thing in financial markets is that people are averse to losses, and so averse to losses that they often avoid taking risks. This is the opposite. Right?
Correct.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. This asymmetry between how you feel when you win versus the feeling when you lose.
I think you're like a heroin addict who is always chasing the first high. A gambling addict's always chasing the feeling good about winning, and so they'll double down, what they call chase, which is what you do. And you don't have, there's something missing. And most, I'll be honest, I think most gambling addicts are very intelligent people, but compulsive gamblers have no control of the dose.
Right.
So they're chasing the dose,
and
they don't. I didn't. You couldn't correlate the result and the accountability and what would happen when if I win this game. You know, I've been on a bender, let's say, and I've been
for example,
I've been chasing, and originally I was trying to make $5,000, and now I have $100,000 on a game to make that $5,000, and I don't realize when this game's over, I'm going to owe $113,000.
Right.
I have $22,000 to my name, and I don't get another bet. And and that's where you're sitting, and you don't realize, like, why the hell would I risk $130,000 to make $5,000 in a 10,000-foot view?
But I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand who look at this stuff is that brain wiring right there. That asymmetry is so different from the way a lot of people approach things. Like back in my time in the financial industry, a lot of the time you're trying to convince people to take on a little more risk, at the sort of efficient frontier stuff, and take on a little more risk for a little more return. And that's often hard to get people to do because they just don't, they're like, no, I'll sit in savings accounts, or I want to sit in CDs or something like this. That's not the brain wiring at all that you're talking about, right? It's almost the exact opposite.
It's almost the exact opposite. It's really the equivalent to drug addiction. Yeah. It really is. And I think it's the same centers of the brain.
Yeah, no.
So one question I have is, and I want to hear some stories, but I don't have a gambling. Do you guys? Are you a gambler, Dick?
Not as far as you know.
How about as far as you know?
But I don't have a gambling bone in my body. Like I just can't. I don't find it. It scares me because I'm going to lose the money I just worked so hard for.
That's that asymmetry thing again.
Yeah,
right?
it's the asymmetry thing.
The pain you get from losses is so much more than the pleasure you get from gains.
But it's a two-part question. The first part is there a high that comes from losing? Is there something that or is that just like, oh, that sucked?
No, I think there isn't a high that comes from losing. There may be, to get a little bit more deeper in the psychology, there may be a masochistic element to this, where you're actually it's an act of self-hate. And often it's a punishment. It's a self-flagellation when you lose. And a lot of gamblers are incredibly insecure, as I was.
Mm-hmm.
What is this partly why you ended up on Wall Street?
No, I wasn't on Wall Street. I was in the commodities exchange in Chicago.
Chicago is not Wall Street. It's the options
we were the
exchange.
agriculture.
Chicago Street.
Yeah. It was agriculture in those days, and they don't have the floors anymore because they're all now on the computers. But it was the funny colored jackets from trading places and the ARBs and the hand signals. And I started out of college as a runner in that world, which is the equivalent of like being in the William Morris mailroom here in Hollywood. And I was there for about a year, and I something in me knew I would die if I did what these guys did, if I became these guys, because these guys were the biggest cowboys you've ever seen. They were heart attacks on the floor. They had defibrillators on the floor.
Are you for real?
No, this world was incredible in the 80s.
How do you know about it?
I lived in Chicago.
Yeah, but you weren't on the Chicago.
You don't know
exchange.
where I was. You don't know anything about me.
But Nick,
what's your name again?
I had two friends in high school whose fathers put a gun in their mouths and killed themselves because they had made, over the course of a year or two, they made $40-60 million in 1985 and then lost it all in 2 days. And then they killed themselves. This was common in that world.
And that's the thing that I think brings out a real gambling mentality in Chicago versus like on the NYSE versus floor traders anywhere else, is there's this, and this is the thing it goes back to the difference between Chicago and what's traded there versus what's happening other places. There's huge leverage, right? Yep. Massive leverage.
Correct.
So the opportunity for gains is immense and the opportunity for losses is immense. You can do that to a degree in equity markets, but nothing like the kind of futures market leverage that exists in Chicago.
And in the agriculture market, the volatility is insane. If there's a winter storm, the orange juice futures go crazy, and it's much more than even a biotech stock.
Which brings
in
the orange juice futures.
It's literally the movie Trading Places.
It is Trading Places.
Pros and concentrated oranges.
Yeah. Such a great movie.
Which brings in the gamblers, though, right? Because it brings in people who are really, that kind of leverage and volatility it's a feature, not a bug for them. They really like that and they want that and they wouldn't go anywhere else.
They would all smoke 2 packs a day. They all did cocaine in the bathrooms, and the heart attacks were plenty in that world.
Yeah. No,
and I left because I knew it was too good for me, and as good as in bad, I wasn't going to survive that world. So I came out to a much less volatile world of Hollywood.
That's right, completely predictable with no leverage.
Okay, so do you want to give us, Dick, a little bit of the listeners of what this whole
prediction
markets, and then I'm curious to get into that with Allan.
I'm going to skip over the regulatory stuff because there's a bunch of interesting, issues and discussions between why, DraftKings, FanDuel, sports betting versus the prediction markets and state regulation versus federal regulation. But ignoring that for the moment, the prediction markets are essentially, there's no house. It's you versus, it's me betting against Paul. It's me saying, I think when SpaceX goes public, it's going to close on day one over $1.4 trillion. And Paul says, I don't think that's true. I'll take the other side of that bet. And that's essentially the prediction markets. You can essentially put money to work against anything. I think when Powell gets on and does his, a Fed notes speech this afternoon, I bet he'll start off with the phrase "good afternoon," and I can take the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can take the no, he won't, and then it'll say on Kalshi or Poly Markets or choose your prediction market, here's how the bet will be settled. In the SpaceX case, if at the end of the first trading day, the close, before the aftermarket is XYZ, and that results in a market cap of, over $1.4 trillion, yes wins the bet, et cetera. You get it. The interesting thing is you can create, as you can imagine, and as I just said with the Powell example, all sorts of crazy predictions.
Now,
Just as context, by the way, just this is not new though, right? The wacky thing is prediction markets, in a weird way, prediction markets go back to the origins of Wall Street. I mean, that's what prediction markets were. We were predicting what would happen with the prices of these instruments. So back in the 19th century, that was a prediction market. And then those evolved over time. And in the 80s and 90s, you saw things like Iowa electronic market. Do you remember that one? Anyone remember that one?
What's that?
It was the earliest academic experiment on letting people bet with kind of funny money on what would happen in elections. So that existed in the 80s. Predict it, in trade. These are all like things that have long disappeared. So these experiments were going on for some time in taking some of these ideas around letting people use money to express their feelings about something, whether or not it's likely to happen. And the other twist that's interesting, and this is what I think what Dick was talking about, that's sort of unusual structurally with respect to prediction markets, is they're binary markets, meaning that you're not betting, in a sense, when I buy a stock, I'm not betting that it'll go to $27 versus $28. I'm just betting it'll go up. But in a binary market, there's a binary outcome I'm betting on. Powell will say this, he won't say this, right? So this notion that there's a kind of a yes-no at the other side is really interesting.
But don't they trade as stocks? Like you can get out before Powell speaks if the public is beginning to agree with you and the market moves.
No, just the idea that the outcome is binary. You can still get in and out continuously, but the thing that at the end of the day, that in theory makes the price change, is a binary outcome. That's what's interesting.
Similar to when a company has earnings and they announce earnings. It's that day the market's going up and down, and then once the earnings are announced, then you can bet,
you can sort of bet that way. So the idea of the whole market predicated on these binary outcomes is one of the twists that makes these things really unusual.
To Paul's point, the binary outcome means it's not I made 10% or I lost 10%. I make this much money or I lose all of it.
Unless you truly are trading continuously, which most people don't.
Which is called a bet.
It's called a bet. That's exactly right.
But but there's millions and millions of people doing this.
Yeah.
So my question is everyone a gambling addict now, or is it just
So, I mean, you're probably in a better position to talk about this than I am.
I would say that the prediction markets and that the way that the Kalshi and Poly market are just forms of gambling, obviously. But I think a large part, the stock market's different. There's investing and trading is more gambling, and investing is a little less gambling. It's all, a gamble and all risk. But yeah, I think the prediction markets are just another form of gambling.
But it's really hard now to find, like if you go hang around at a college, and I was talking to my son about this the other day, you walk by a random group of young males, and just if you want to make a bet about a bet on what they're talking about. As you walk by a cluster of young males, 70, 80% chance you'll hear them talking about the prop bet on the weekend game, about whatever. And it's uniformly true. And you hear this all over the United States in particular, maybe true in the rest of the world, but it's become one of the main things that young males, more so young males than young females, are talking about, because it's one of the central preoccupations they have, is this thing, these daily fantasy sports that I can bet on outcomes and really weird things like the first fumble will be in the something minute of this game. But that has really, I'll say it, sort of democratized this stuff and almost acts like a drug in terms of giving people cheap and easy access to it for low prices on absolutely everything they would otherwise just idly watch.
Is there, going back to the, if Powell's going to say good morning when he does his speech, is there insider trading? Like if I wrote Powell's speech?
Off the charts.
Off the chart. I mean,
but I'm saying
there's no
rules.
It's actually
that's right. And even with the SEC, there's lots of insider trading. So it works either way.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
That's like if you talk to the, Tarek or Shane, the Polymarkets or Kalshi founders, I flip those around. It's you get it what I mean. They will tell you that's part of the whole deal. Like, there's insider trading.
Right.
Now in the stock market, it's of course there's insider trading, but we have a group that supposedly prevents that. Here, it's part of the whole deal, and everyone acknowledges it. And in fact, it's already been known to have happened a couple of times, as was famously mentioned in the news, but happens regularly in the couple hours before we went in and got Maduro. Somebody came in with a new account and and won $400,000 that had made one prediction. And
one prediction only.
Does that person get in trouble or no?
No.
There's no one to get in trouble with.
Again, there's no one regulating this.
There's no
You can't
laws
do that.
against this.
Yeah.
There's no laws against it.
prediction markets. What's the liquidity like? Because I'm not on the prediction markets.
It completely depends on the market. Most of them are very thinly traded. The dirty secret of most prediction markets is they have all of these election and financial and apparently war predictions. All of those are illiquid. The thing that's mostly what are the most liquid are anything to do with sports. And so that's the complaint that a lot of people have is these are actually thinly disguised sports betting marketplaces that operate under the label of being prediction markets because that's where all the liquidity is. It's really hard to get and keep people motivated about very much that's not sports related, possibly politics. But again, even with finance, predicting what's going to happen to a company's earnings, there already is a prediction market for that. It's called the stock market. Yeah. It's really liquid. Works pretty well.
In fact, this is the DraftKings and FanDuel legal action.
Right.
As, hey, we have to be state regulated, state by state by state, and go get approvals. And
that's right. Yeah.
And then these guys
come whining.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, these guys come in with the CFTC and get federal approval to do these. But it's really just what we're doing.
Right. Without the state by state approval requirement.
Correct.
Right.
You, Allan, tell us some stories. Come on, you got some good ones. Tell us about the cab with the money that you left.
Oh, it was the tram. Okay, yeah. This is. I wrote about this in I wrote a column for an article for the Free Press about my life as a compulsive gambler. And this is a story I tell in it, which is basically I had to go to Vegas. My bookie cut me off, and I was I owed him a lot of money. I think it was at the time $90,000.
How long ago was this?
20 plus years ago. And I owed him a lot of money and I needed to. So I sold some of my tech stocks. It was the late 90s because I had made a ton of money off of the tech stocks that we all, if you're a certain age, you remember the JDSUs and the Sienna. And
I remember them well.
They all went up. Like you didn't have to know what they did. They all went up and I had made a lot. So I liquidated a lot of that account, and I was taking $100,000 to Vegas to bet one weekend to try to pay the bookie back. Instead of just taking the money and giving it to the bookie, I was going to Vegas to double it, pay the bookie, and then put the money back into the stocks.
Let me guess, that's not how it works out.
Because if it is, I'll be right back.
And the story is that I go to Vegas and I take the tram, I get off the plane, I have $100,000. And in the article I wrote, you have to do this dance because you can't take over $10,000 out at each branch. So I had to drive around town and go to 10 branches to get $9,500 out of each one, which is like a water torture of self-hate. I got all the money. I put it in an old Puma bag. I'm on a flight to Vegas with $100,000 in cash in a Puma bag, a little nervous, looking over my shoulders, hoping I wasn't followed from the bank. And I land and I go and get to the cab line, and I don't have the bag on me. I left the Puma bag on the tram. I literally was so nervous. I left the Puma bag on the tram, and I sprinted.
Clearly, someone who's left a Puma bag on a plane before.
Who among us?
Who among us has not?
And I sprinted through the airport to get back to that tram. And I remember going through that sprint and promising myself, this is a sign from God. This is a sign from God. If I find this bag, if I can get this bag in my hand, I'm going back to L.A. and I'm done. I'm done. Yeah. And I did get back onto the tram, and the bag was just fucking sitting there on the bench. Can I say fucking?
Yeah, you can say fucking.
And so there it was, thank God. And I went right to the casino and lost the money.
I was going to say, I'm guessing that promise fell through.
Within 3 hours, I lost it the old-fashioned way and not just the
Were you up at
way?
any moment in time, or was it just straight down from there?
I don't even remember.
Next time I lose a Puma bag, though.
It's all a blur. That was one of many, many stories.
Give us another good one.
I'll tell you another good one that I love. So I'm. By the way, I'm a screenwriter. So I work in Hollywood, and there's this. I'll go quick, but this is a two-part story. The first one was I had quit. I was in Gamblers Anonymous. I was in recovery for about 2 or 3 years, and I was just making it in Hollywood and getting successful, and finally making back all the money I had lost in my life, and feeling good about myself. And a Sony executive called me and said, "I heard a rumor that you are a compulsive gambler." I said, "I'm very open about this and proud." Yeah, no problem. He's like, "Could you would it be healthy or unhealthy for you to write a movie based on this book, Bringing Down the House, which was Bez Mesrick's book? We're going to make it into a movie, and we have a draft. It's not great. Would you be interested? I said, I don't know. I got to talk to my mom and my therapist. And I called my mom and my therapist, and they both said, oh, maybe. And I ended up coming onto the movie and writing the movie. And the movie did well, and it was all successful, and I didn't start gambling again.
What was that experience like, just real quick, writing a movie about gambling when you're in Gamblers Anonymous?
It was a lot, because I was in Vegas for a lot of part of that. So I'm right back in the Lion's Den,
right back in
but
I'm
doing the new gamble, my career, which is a healthier gambler.
Yeah.
Were there moments you were like, I just want to put $20
No, I was
on.
really good then. Yeah. Really good then. I had many relapses after that. But this was a good period in my life. But anyways, I wrote the movie. The movie did well. Whatever.
By the way, Jeff Ma worked for me at Twitter, the student in the...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, is that right? No, that's funny.
From Bringing Down the House?
Yeah, it was his story.
Yeah,
that's his story.
And Ben Mesrick wrote it.
What did he do at Twitter? Gambling?
Insert joke here. Yeah. He's product manager.
Yeah, that's right.
But the end of the story is a few years later I did relapse, and it was on the Super Bowl against Denver and Carolina. It was, I think it was 2015, maybe. Yeah, it was. And I called up my bookie, who I hadn't talked to in 10 years or whatever, and he's like, "Hey man, it's been a long time. I'm like, can I just put down one bet on this game, 75?" He said, "Sure," and I bet Denver, and I was in New York. And Denver won. And I had won $75,000. And I called him. I'm like, I'm not going to be in LA for a few months. Maybe I'll get someone to pick it up. He's like, dude, I'll FedEx it to you. It's fine. It was UPS. I'll UPS it to you. I go, are you serious? He's like, do it all the time. Totally fine. And I was stupidly said, yeah, okay. And so he UPS $75,000 cash to me, but it never came. And so I had my assistant track it down. And she called me back. I'll never forget this. And she called me back and she said, yeah, I found it. It's at the Louisville Police Department.
Oh, no.
And so I called the bookie and I'm freaking out. I'm like, they have it at the Louisville. He's like, no worries. I got a lawyer. This is fine. This is the deal. You are a screenwriter. You are in film. He was also a wannabe filmmaker. Uh-huh. He had financed with his, business, his bookie profits.
We call that laundering.
Yeah. I wonder if this could ever get me in trouble. But anyways, he said, don't worry, you consulted. This is our story. You consulted on my new movie, because he made these low independent movies. And I paid you cash. It's illegal to pay someone cash. Sure. And maybe we'll have IRS issues down the line, but we're fine. And that's the lawyer, and I'll have the lawyer call the Louisville Police Department. I was freaking out. I was literally, this is TMI, but I went through my apartment, threw away all the Vicodin. And so he called me, the lawyer called me with him on the phone and said, good news. We're all set. We talked to the Louisville Police Department. They do intercept cash. They find cash. They have cash-sniffing dogs.
Oh, wow.
And it was because of the kind of fentanyl and drug trade and meth trade. Yeah. But we told him our story. He was fine. But the Louisville Police Department did ask, could you send them a signed poster for the movie 21? It's one of their favorite movies.
Too funny.
So I did send it, and I got the money. They just shipped it along, and I got the money. And I think it's maybe that poster is still hanging out in the Louisville Police Department.
Louisville Police. I haven't been in a while, so I can't vouch for that.
My question is, where can I get a cash-sniffing dog? That was my takeaway from the story. Yeah. Wait, they make those?
They make those? What do they cost?
I'm going to go back and hold a $100 bill under my Australian Shepherd's nose.
It's got to be that they're like...
Find more.
The money's like drug tainted, though, right? Isn't that the deal? Like, I remember reading about this once, not to go totally down the drug-sniffing dog rat hole, but I remember reading somewhere it was because...
Of course you read about dogs sniffing drugs.
It was like the money is in close proximity to drugs.
Or they use
so almost all bills have a trace of drugs on them, and that's how they find the cash from the dog.
Yeah. Amazing.
Right.
It's the old Chris Rock line. No, but why are ATMs open at 3 a.m.? No one ever took out $400 at 3 a.m. for a good reason.
That's right. This is true.
I have a prediction markets hypothesis, or actually theoretical question. This is obviously silly, but if you're, I don't know, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, whoever, and you've got all these security guys, and you're worried about people coming after you, or crazy people attacking you. It seems to me you could create a market where you took the no side of the bet, the yes no of will I live to be more than 85, And it's basically free money for anyone who takes the yes side of the bet. And those people are going to come out and protect you themselves.
That's right.
And make sure.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of credit default swaps.
Yeah.
I'm like, instead of buying insurance on other people's houses, I'm buying trying to save their houses.
I'm shorting my life with a ridiculous amount of money for my own benefit.
That's right.
Because everybody on the other side of the trade's going to be like, I got to make sure nothing happens to Alon.
I only know
Saves
one
him
thing.
on security. A lot on security.
That's right.
Yeah.
I only know one
Free
thing.
security.
But he's got to live.
Yeah, right.
You don't do any of that betting? That you do the sports stuff. What do you?
I like sports. I'm a fan of sports.
Are you doing
but
the online sports?
I don't know. I don't bet game to game anymore.
Yeah.
The only I dabble in something called the Super Contest, which is at the beginning of. I love football.
What's
Football
the
betting
Super
was
Contest?
my thing. And the Super Contest is you go to Vegas in August before the season, and you pay. It's not much. It's $2,000, and you're in a contest with a lot of other handicappers, and the winner gets $1 million, and the first 20, 30 people can make. And it's just fun. It gives me the whole season without going game to game. When I went game to game, I went crazy. This is my methadone to a heroin addict. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. Can I just go backwards again for a second? One of the other things, I was thinking about this when we were going to do this episode, that years ago I remember reading, I forget where it was like a history of gambling in America. And what's really interesting is it's basically there from the beginning, right? It's unlike almost any other country on earth. There's a great line, what's his name, de Tocqueville, the Democracy in America, Alexis de Tocqueville. He had a great line where he talked about the feverish ardor with which Americans approached anything that might help them get rich quick. And it was so alien to him coming from France, because he was a French philosopher and sociologist. He came over and was writing about this feverish ardor. And not only that, this idea, the other thing that he commented on, and this is in 1870, so, it's
Before Instagram.
Well before Instagram and well before Daily Fantasy Sports. And the other thing he talked about was this, I forget the exact word, something like this shadowy suspicion or something like this, that there might be a better way to get rich quick. That was fundamental to understanding Americans. Like, I'm trying to get rich quick, but I have a hunch there's an even better way. Yeah. And there's this constant suspicion that they may be able to find an even better way.
Right.
And de Tocqueville used that as a way of trying to explain the American psyche, that this is uniquely American. And he wasn't necessarily making us think, and therefore they're all really bad people. It was just almost in a descriptive way. You need to understand this to understand the American psyche. So that's the one point. So that's been there since the beginning. The thing that I think is really interesting now, though, is that there's all kinds of recent work showing how, as it becomes less predictable how you will make a living. So as countries, for example, there's all these studies out now showing that people in general don't feel like their kids will have a better life than they did. There's lots of this sort of data out there from Pew and others.
From AI and all the things coming.
All the things going on, political upheaval, whatever else. That when that happens in a country, people generally become much more short-term, look for much more speculative ways to make money. This all feeds into this. So the interesting thing in the U.S., is it's at the intersection of those two forces. You got a country founded on gambling that goes sort of lurching into a moment where suddenly there's this kind of almost implicit pressure because I feel like I don't know what my economic livelihood is going to look like. I don't know that it's going to be gig work or this or that or the other thing. And people in general then tend to become much more focused on these speculative games. So that's, I think, underneath all of this, there's these two really interesting forces.
I 100% agree with your hypothesis that as AI causes people to be more and more concerned about job safety, the participation in lottery-style activities like this will only increase.
Yeah, and it's once you sort of turn it around and think about those as the pressures, the forces pushing this forward, it's not just that this is a novelty. It's almost, people almost feel like it's a compulsion driven by the changing economic livelihood, but also because of this unique nature of the American psyche that there's a bunch of riverboat gamblers. Right.
It's always been like that,
that's
right?
right?
I mean, that's what this country, and that has spurred innovation and why we are, the leading country in innovation.
Right. So those two things together, I just think sometimes people get trapped in the idea of, it's just another novelty. No. This is a novelty.
This is the new.
It's arrived at a moment and implanted itself on a population of people who could not be more susceptible to the virus.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. I've been working on this project about gambling in Hawaii and all the crime there in the 1960s and 70s. And the part
if you're going to use this to pitch your movie, you have to pitch my movie. You actually have to pay for advertising.
That's
space.
Exactly right. My friend, you don't get a deal here.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I couldn't they made millions. I mean, in the 60s and 70s, millions back then on all the gambling, and I couldn't understand why these people would work, as laborers in the fields all day and then go spend it all night on the chicken fights and so on. And
that's what they were gambling on, was chicken fights?
Oh, there were chicken fight. Well, everything. Chicken fights. There were lots of Asian games that they brought over from Japan and Korea and whatnot. But there was someone that told us that it was literally like the same thing as you're saying. It's like they were making such a little amount of money. They saw this as an opportunity to. This was it. This was how they would get out of it all.
Yeah.
And every week they would take their money and they would waste it.
But I would argue that if any of them won big, they didn't just stop gambling. And
Yeah.
they didn't just,
Of course.
oh, I got there. We're done. So it's the old, everybody who, these numbers of who wins the lottery and what happens to them after they win the lottery is many go bankrupt.
Yeah, it's horrifying, right? Not just because they got bad advice either, right?
What do you think is the psychology of? So you've worked on the Chicago Stock Exchange. Sorry, Dick.
It's not called
Wall
the
Street.
stock exchange.
Not a-
but
Yeah,
that
Whatever.
doesn't-
It's called something.
Just say Chicago and then
In the
you'll
Board
get
of
like-
Trade.
You
Board
board
of
on the
Trade.
Board
Yeah.
of Trade.
Yeah.
And you've worked in gambling. You've written movies, Wall Street 2, 21. You've written all it's all in. It kind of is encompassed in. There's a rubric under it. What is the psychology of these people where the overlap is? Is it about winning? Like this, I have to win, or is it about is it the excitement of the?
I got to speak for myself,
Okay.
and probably it would also translate to many others who are interested in gambling and these things. I think it's the chaos, controlling the chaos. Flirting with randomness or trying to tame randomness, domesticate randomness. We all are out of control at all times. We have no control over our outcomes, and the risks are terrifying. And I think it is a way to try to manage the vulnerabilities of life psychologically. And you feel like if you win the big bet, or if you bet, you put a lot of money into the stock that ends up exploding because of the reason you thought it would explode, suddenly you can control the universe. You can maybe stave off death somewhere in the back of your head. So I think that's the psychology that
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like existential dread as profit driver.
Yeah. That's right. That is right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been for me, and I think that's probably for many.
There's these truly mispriced markets.
Yes.
And so you say to yourself,
Right.
the suspicion is that, well, does that mean that someone on the inside knows something?
Right.
Well, that can't be true, because in this case, it seems awfully wired in that this is going to be the outcome. So I don't think that's the case. Is it that it's thin, that the market's really thin, and so it's illiquid, it gets moved around by just a couple of people who are playing? And the other one is, and we just ran into this, and this is a really awful example, but with respect to the U.S. action in Venezuela, that there was a market, I think it was on Kalshi. Was it on Kalshi or Polymarket? And it was on one of them. And it didn't initially pay off, despite the U.S. taking action and toppling the leader in Venezuela. And it said, and this was specific, the market wasn't on, January the 7th at 7 p.m. It was nothing so specific. It just said that the U.S. would take military action. And so I think one of the reasons why there's this uneasiness with some of these markets is that
Well, what do you mean it didn't pay off? They didn't pay them?
they said that wasn't
They said that's not the, remember, it's always a binary yes or no.
Right.
This happened, yes or
Got
no.
it.
And the description of a yes was more vague than just, we went and got Maduro. It was something
Right.
like, we're at war with Venezuela.
We're at war with Venezuela.
And the
that was it.
prediction market
Got it.
said, well, we're not really at war with Venezuela. We just went in and
the U.S.
a
hasn't
guy.
declared war on anyone
Yeah,
it's been at war with
yeah.
for an awfully long time.
Right,
So this is a bit of a problem just definitionally, right? We just go to war.
Yeah.
And
Congress actually hasn't declared war.
this is
We
more
just have 20,000 soldiers over there.
Right. This is just
shooting
mild
people.
disfavor. We're not actually at war here. It may look like so. Anyway, so this idea, I think that also creates this mispricing. Will this really resolve? Because it's written in a way that suggests there's a couple of ways this could pan out. And so, anyway, so there's all of these things that make, and this goes back to your point earlier about the absence of regulation and everything else. That there's this sense that the market makers could resolve this in a way that hurts people, even if the outcome is obvious. That this should have paid off.
But let's talk about the market makers for a second, because I think one of the things that people don't realize about these prediction markets is, in many cases, you have huge hedge funds like Susquehanna, who's now literally going to go create one with Robinhood, or has created one with Robinhood, who are 30% of the market making in Kalshi and Poly markets, and they have an enormous information advantage over Nick Bilton, So when
That's why I don't bet.
when you're placing money, on a yes/no proposition of any sort on one of these prediction markets, just in the back of your mind, understand there are multi-billion-dollar hedge funds.
Are they running like their quants and everything and figuring it all out? Then they're placing the bets and they're
making the
gonna
market.
win.
No, they're making the markets. They're buying and selling on both sides, and so they're able to make the money through both through the exchange and by taking direct positions. But the idea that some people have this naive idea, just like in the stock market, they have this naive idea that it's just a bunch of other people like me on the other side. No, it's not. Right? It's not. And in equity markets, it's mostly algorithms. Right? Better than 70% of the volume on equity markets is algorithms. They're not taking your feelings into account. Just spoiler. And it's the exact same thing on prediction markets increasingly, that it's not, in any liquid market, it's not your peers who are all trading madly with you. It's Jane Street, it's Susquehanna. Yeah.
It's
all
the
of
house.
these. They're taking the other side.
The house is always going to be there. If there's action, there's the house.
Right. And the
house wins.
Always.
Which is why they have those nice buildings. It's like your favorite law firm. It's like, my God, they have nice offices. My God, I paid a lot for this. Right? It's the exact same phenomenon.
With Polymarket and Kalshi, I've not engaged on it.
Because?
It doesn't interest me.
Why?
Because I'm not. For me, it's if I'm going to, have an opinion, it's going to be more within the equities market. It's a bigger, better market. I mean,
bigger, better, more liquid.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in betting on who's going to win the presidency or any of these things.
The thing that I find interesting about these things now, though, is that, and this is something that I think in some ways people take too seriously, is that the prediction markets become the thing that affects the outcome. So you'll see them cited in newspaper articles increasingly.
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's funny. It's like, I remember when I was at the New York Times in like 2012, and it used to be so and so on the street said da da da, and then around 2015 it was so and so on Twitter said da da da, and now it's the prediction markets. They're like the prediction market. It's like that's become the new voice on the street.
Right, and then that's inherently circular, right? Because if I know, and if it's a market that I can influence, by influencing the market, I influence what people think is likely to happen, and that in turn becomes the revealed truth of what's likely to happen, right? So it's round and round, and it feeds
literally the canonical example is, well, if you look at poly markets, Gavin Newsom only has a 20% chance of winning. Like, this is, and then the news article quotes that as what's the likely outcome. Like, no, that's not. That's just what a bunch of people think.
Who are who not only just what a bunch of people think, but a bunch of people who are so passionate about this that they feel like it's a good use of their time to bet on this market.
Yes,
that's why I ask about the liquidity, because if it were a highly liquid market, I would think that the information is much more reliable, because there will be someone in the market who knows.
So that almost all of these markets are not liquid enough for that to be the case. So and in particular, the ones that are political bring in this kind of partisanship fervor where,
of course.
This guy, Newsom's a good example, is he has 0% chance of winning. I'm going to take the other side of this all day long, drive down the price and so on. And there's a method to what they're doing in terms of trying to influence. And then in turn,
so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then it becomes cited as if it's reflective of, as if it's like a Pew poll of something that's going on out there in the world. And it's not. It's just a motivated participants in a thinly traded market that's created a position.
When you look at sports bets, does that influence in any way what kind of bets, or do you know people in that industry that are looking at the sports bets and the DraftKings and things like that to see what the market, what the populace thinks before you go and do the actual bet with the bookie?
Yeah, I mean, in the sports betting arena, there is the public and there are the sharps. I mean, those are the teams. I mean, and the public are the morons who are almost always are wrong, and the sharps are the guys who are almost always right, and those are the pros, and they tend to be on the contrarian side. So
we're the sharps, right?
Yeah, totally.
Why do they call them sharps?
Because they're professional gamblers. They know. They have more information and more experience, and it's the same thing with the stock market. I mean, it's the second you're the guy shining your shoes, which this is an old reference. Maybe we don't go to shoe shiners anymore, but the second the guy shining your shoes has a stock tip for you, you're better off shorting that stock than buying that stock. Or when the cab drivers and the shoe shiners and everyone starts talking about whatever stock it is, that's when you're in a bubble. Or the old magazine cover theory, and this is all in stock market.
What's the magazine cover theory?
The magazine cover is, I remember Enron made the magazine, a big one. Maybe
Fortune.
It was Time or Fortune.
It was Fortune.
And it was literally within a month, the whole thing fell. The second a company makes a financial magazine is when you know the bubble's about to burst, especially for that company or that sector. Which is the same thing in sports gambling. It's that's the public.
And in part, it's because once it feels like it's a sure thing, that's what drives someone like Fortune to feel like, oh, it's safe to put this on the cover because it's obvious. It's obvious that Enron, in this particular case, is the future. And so when it feels that obvious, it's almost never that obvious, right? So you're at the other end. You're at the other side of the cycle, and that's true across all of these.
I have a question for you, Paul. So you on our text thread, which is where this podcast all began, you often send prediction market stats and so yeah, you do. Is that because are you looking at it as an affirmation or is it just a curiosity or like where is that?
So for me, mostly this stuff is just stupid human tricks.
Got it.
Right. So it's like the old Letterman show. It's like seeing that this is the consensus about this particular thing is interesting because generally speaking, back to Alan's point, the retail's usually wrong. And so if this is what retail thinks, I really like to know that this is the consensus. It's no different than in the oldest prediction market, equity markets. If you looked at things like Dick's favorite things, you look at analysts and analyst consensus. That's a kind of prediction, right? They'll say next quarter we're predicting $2.32 in earnings per share. Oh, wow, these guys are really good at predicting these things. No, they're not. No, A, they're always wrong. But B, and this is far more important, they're not actually making that prediction. They're being fed numbers by the company who then tries to lowball them a bit so there's a chance that I can do numbers even bigger. So that entire prediction business is predicated on creating a false impression of what's going on out there so that I can then beat it. It's just a game, right? It's just another kind of prediction market game.
One of the fascinating things to me about the prediction markets is that they regularly shitpost on social media in a way that like MGM Casino and DraftKings and so don't, you know.
That's a great one, yeah.
These are sports references to Paul's point about the real liquidity is in the sports prediction markets. But, Kalshi posting an image of 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey with the caption, loves receiving balls. And then to equal opportunity, just to give Polymarket its equal airtime.
Shitposter marketing, here we go.
Yeah, shitposter marketing, equal opportunity airtime. On Polymarket, an image of Toronto Raptors. This is a basketball player for Nick. Toronto Raptors player Grady Dick with the headline, Dick is growing. So these are childish, of course, shitposting memes, but one can draw the logical conclusion that they see it as an obvious way to attract younger male bettors.
Which is what DraftKings, I was going to say DraftKings and FanDuel and these sports, their marketing budgets for young people are incredible.
Incredible.
You were talking about how you overhear people on college campuses, men on college campuses talking about who they're betting on or what prop they're betting on. This marketing towards youth is, insane when you think about it. And there should be, and I don't know exactly how much regulation there is in that arena, but there should be, you wouldn't market, I guess they did used to market tobacco for teenagers.
All of this stuff was tobacco, alcohol, and everything else. And it's got to the point where in the UK and the Premier League, for a while, the largest sponsors, and this is another kind of gambling, but was crypto companies, right? Yeah. So they were one of the largest jersey sponsors in the Premier League. And then it moved on and became some of the broader prediction stuff. But all of this, again, turn it around. And I always say this, anytime you're watching a sporting event, look at the ads. These are the people who are watching it with you. So if it's for obesity drugs or this or that, those are I'm watching this with a bunch of fat white guys. Why am I watching this? Right? Same thing with Premier League. I see what's on the jerseys. The demographic of people who are watching this are clearly people to whom that's appealing. So it's probably 27-year-old tech guys who think that crypto's a path to wealth. And so you have to always turn it around because they really understand the demographics of who they're presenting this to.
Well, the gambling is uniquely male-driven.
Absolutely.
And that's why I hated Gamblers Anonymous. My friends who went to Alcoholics Anonymous had really cute girls to look at for those 2 hours. For me, it was all 72-year-old men named Irv. And that's basically why I left GA.
Love those guys.
And started drinking Chardonnay regular at noon.
What's the movie? What's the Tim Robbins movie where the guy goes to AA and he said, "Oh, I'm on my way to the AA meeting right now," and he stops
The Player.
In The Player, there's the great moment where he's on his way and he says, "I can't stop right now. I'm on the way to my AA meeting," and I guess it's Tim Robbins says, "Oh, I didn't know you had a drinking problem." He said, "No, I don't. This is where everyone goes now. This is where we all meet at AA meetings." Because
Peter Gallagher.
Peter Gallagher, right? Peter Gallagher's
That's where all the best deals are made.
all the best deals are made are in AA meetings now. Yeah. Same thing, right? I mean, it's
Pick up the cutest girls in AA.
pick up the cutest girls.
None in GA. None in GA. Trust me.
Just the guy named Irv.
I feel terrible because if there's someone listening to this who was thinking about going to GA, I just, destroyed the next 10 years.
Hopefully
of his
they're not
life.
going there for dating reasons.
Can you give us? We're going to wrap up here, but can you give us one story, one more story as an outro for our show?
Sure. You know what? I'm going to do it. It's not it's an okay story, but it's timely because it was the Super Bowl where New England played Seattle. So the reason I'm telling this is because of the recent Super Bowl, and this was, I think, 10 years ago, roughly.
Yep.
And it was Pete Carroll was the coach, and Marshawn Lynch was the running back for Seattle, and Tom Brady was the quarterback for New England. It was a big Super Bowl, a very exciting Super Bowl, and I bet 100,000.
You're speaking Chinese to me right now.
Okay,
I have
well,
no
I'm
idea
sorry.
who these people are. But keep
Most
going.
people that listen
Most
will
people
know
will
what I'm
know,
saying.
yes.
I
When
would
you
assume.
know what the outcome is and how it happened, this couldn't be a more terrifying story. It's giving me anxiety.
All right,
already.
so go back. You put $100,000 on who?
Seattle.
On Seattle. Okay.
I put $100,000 on
2016
Seattle, roughly.
Football team.
football team.
Yes.
Got it.
And I have $100,000 on the team, and I go to a party at a friend's house, and there's a bunch of people around. There's this really cute girl, and she says, "I think New England's going to win." I'm kind of flirting, and I say, "Well, let's put money on it." And we put $20 on the game. I took Seattle. She took New England. I have $100,000, meanwhile, in Seattle, which I didn't tell anybody. We're watching the game now. Nick, you won't remember this, but the game, near the end of the game, very, very close to the end of the game, Seattle had the ball on the 1-yard line, and they were going to win. I was done. It was easy because they had a guy named Marshawn Lynch who was guaranteed to get a touchdown at 1 yard. He did it all season long. He was a killer running back, and all they had to do was hand it to him and put it through the goal line. Everyone knew this. But the coach got a little cute, and he decided, he thought, well, everyone knows this, and maybe they'll stop him, so I'm going to have Russell Wilson pass the ball, which is this is known in the NFL, the stupidest Super Bowl decision in the history of the game. I don't think anyone will argue that. Nick, back me up on that. He threw the ball, interception, and I lost $100,000.
But you won 20.
And no, I lost. And the second I watched this, I'm digesting this. It's all going through me, and I have this cute little girl with a big smile saying, "You owe me $20." And I just looked at her with a smile, took out my wallet, gave her $20, slowly walked away, and just cried alone in the corner. That's my New England Seattle story.
That's brutal.
Real quick, one last quick question. Does the bookies ever turn around and say, "Dude, you got a problem"?
No, I mean
it's like
no,
it's like it's like a liquor store saying.
I was going to say, that's like my drug dealer saying, you really need to step it back.
I've been friends with a lot of my bookies, and I'm still friends with them. I talked to a few of my best bookies. There have been situations, not from me, because I was always someone who could pay. I made money, or I had money, or I never was going to rob a liquor store.
Worst
to
comes to
pay.
worst, you could take a Puma bag to Las Vegas. Get it all back.
You're good for the Puma bag.
So for me, it was never like that. But I have talked to them, and they've had clients who've just had a wife and kids, and were just really always on the public side, as we were saying, always on the mush bet we call, always losing. And one of my bookie friends sat a guy down and said, "You're doing this wrong. And I'm actually gonna teach you how to do it right, or I'm gonna cut you off." And basically had the talk with him, and it was like, I don't need to take your money anymore, and it's not that much for me. But I'm watching you destroy your life. So there was a bookie with a heart story in there.
It sounds like a hooker with a heart of gold story.
There was the story. Alan came to Thanksgiving at our house, and my brother-in-law told a story of a guy he knew who made like $30 million. I don't know on what, but he got divorced and got into all the gambling markets and sports betting and this, that, and the other, and lost it all. And then they found him dead in his bed with the laptop open, still on like DraftKings or something like that. They don't know what happened.
Well,
they think he owed someone $1.5 million. What?
I just don't understand the import of the story. A guy opened DraftKings and it killed him?
No, it's he got in so deep that he owed a bookie so much money that they killed him.
Oh, they killed him. I thought this was
I
suicide.
see. I thought,
No.
I thought he
yeah.
killed himself.
No.
All right.
See?
Boy, you really didn't tell that story correctly.
No, I feel like
Should I do it
I
again?
think we all would have left with the impression that the guy had killed himself.
yeah, there was this kind of maudlin moment.
Yeah. And it's,
All right. Well, on that note,
instead of,
this has been another episode of the Nick, Dick, and Paul Show featuring Allan Loeb.
by the way, Ellen, all of our episodes end in murder.
yeah.
That's because we use it as cross promotion for the other show.
Tune in again. We're going to have Allan back for another episode where we're going to be talking about Hollywood and AI and how people like Allan won't have a job soon.
Fantastic.